Hello, everybody. It's episode 14th of Grizzlies Worldwide. And on this episode, we have with us Coach Vaughn. Coach Vaughn, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Doing great. I'm super excited to be on the show. I've been a fan for a while, just watching the interviews that you've been doing, man. You're doing a great job, doing great work. So it's an honor to be on.
Oh, thank you so much. It's an honor to have you here, and I was really looking forward to have you here. Um, I want to thank you for joining in. And okay, so let's get started to basketball, Grizzlies, and all, because that's all it's all about. You've been watching the summer league. What's like the overview, your overview on the summer league so far, like general in team terms or even players, if you want to start mentioning. But how do you see the Grizzlies coming into this summer league, and how what like what are you um how are you watching this the summer league so far?
Well, I haven't missed a Grizzlies game yet in the summer league. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm a real big hoop head, especially when it comes to the Grizzlies. So I rarely miss games unless I have to, even during the regular season. So I mean the expectations coming in. I think we had high expectations for Gigi.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us had, high expectations for Edie. There's another crowd that was kind of just waiting to see if Edie's game translates. I was one of those people who knew it would. I was just excited and had high expectations for him when it did happen. Other than that, everyone else was kind of just like, it'd be nice. It'd be a pleasant surprise if we could see, some flashes from him or see Jake continue to move in the direction that he's moving in. Uh, in terms of the summer league, though, I think we've definitely surpassed expectations as a team. It's been, especially since we stepped foot in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
I think we forced like 57 turnovers the last two games or something crazy like that.
I didn't
The
watch last night game, but yeah, but the other games, yeah, I noticed that we were like the defense was really on. But go on, go on, go on.
yes, it's been incredible. It's probably more than that because the first game we forced 31, and I want to say last game we forced 27. So that's a crazy amount of turnovers to be forcing um, in a summer league game. I think we're I want to say we're averaging like 18 steals in summer
Mm-hmm.
league right now. It's incredible what Scottie Pippen Jr. is doing on ball, as well as Larabia. Using his hands and being quick with his hands. I will say in summer league they allow you to get, I think, 10 fouls.
Yeah.
So, so I think they're kind of just playing aggressive and just taking advantage of that opportunity to use all 10 fouls because we've kind of been getting away with a little bit of reaching and over aggressiveness, but it's paying off, and I just love to see the mentality. But overall, I think, Edie surpassed expectations. Jake has surpassed expectations. Scotty has been incredible. Cam Spencer has been incredible. Gigi has been great as well. Some people want to see him pass. I'm not really in that crowd of wanting to see him have a bunch of assists. Like, I could care less.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to see
Yeah.
him score the ball, rebound, play good defense, and just make good decisions. And only person that I would say is kind of been underwhelming if you're looking at box score is Jalen Wells, but I think he's been incredible on the defensive end, and he's
Mm-hmm.
taking good shots. He's taking good shots as well. I just think they're not falling as much. But he has had two separate games. That second game in Salt Lake, and then the last game where he kind of, went on a run scoring the ball. So the scoring, pedigree is definitely there. The defense is almost surprised a lot of people, but I seen it coming. But I didn't think it would be this good right away. But this team has been great in terms of summer league. be interesting to see what we do against Orlando because that is a pretty good team as well, and they've been kind of moving in the same trajectory as us when it comes to summer league. So
Hmm.
it'll be interesting to see who plays and how they play in that game.
Yeah, I noticed that you wrote that maybe we were like sparing players against Orlando. You think that might happen? Like because for
I
Summer
don't.
League, this is a very big game tomorrow.
Yeah, I just look at the history of how the Grizzlies handle summer league.
Hmm.
And typically that third or fourth game, because we're gonna have a back to back. We're gonna have a game on Wednesday, and then we got a game on Thursday as well. So one of those games they're gonna be resting. I will hope that it will be the Thursday game. I hope they play.
Yeah, for sure.
I hope they play the guys on Wednesday, but there'll definitely be some resting going on in one of these next two games. But let's hope it's not the next game because I really want to see them play that extra game and get some morale going. Like winning a summer league championship is not like incredible, but like it gets the morale in the organization going in the right direction. And that's kind of what happened to us. I want to say Ja's rookie year. We kind of won the
Yeah,
summer league and it carried over into the season. So I would love to see that happen for an organization who went through all we went through last year for sure.
yeah, yeah. Me too. Me too. And speaking of Summer League, you spoke about some players. Pippen. How are you seeing Pippen there?
I've been a Pippen fan for a while. I lived in Nashville for like Vanderbilt has a special place in my heart because it's downtown Nashville and it was the closest school other than Middle Tennessee State. It was the closest school to us, or whatever the case may be. So, I tend to tune in and watch Vanderbilt when they're doing well. And when Scotty was in college and playing for Vanderbilt, he stayed there for 3 years. Uh, he just got better and better every year. He got better every year, and then he came into the NBA, same thing. He's just gotten better and better every year. The defense is a pleasant surprise. Like Scotty
Hmm.
was more of a scorer and more of a a bucket in college, and he still has that, but he's turned his defense up to a level that I just haven't seen in Grizzly Summer League history. I don't know if we've ever in Grizzly Summer League history had a player playing as well as Scotty is playing on defense. Like I've never seen. He's taken over the last two games by himself. He
Yeah,
is the guys are playing well behind him as well, but he's definitely the one setting the tone. He's the one setting the tone, and his defense has been incredible, man. It's been amazing to watch.
yeah, yeah. For sure. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And also, um, Cam Spencer. You knew him already. We're gonna talk about the draft, but okay. And for what I saw from you, you like do draft analysis. Did you
Yes.
see Cam's game translating to, well, it's just summer league for now, but translating to like a pre NBA level like this right now? But it was kind
Uh,
of a surprise for a lot of people, me included. A surprise, not that I was not expecting. I didn't know what to expect. Did you?
I definitely had him in that group of elite shooters. I did a poll. Um, I did a poll early on in the draft process before it happened, and I was asking Grizzlies Twitter which shooter they prefer, and a lot of them picked either Cam Spencer or Baylor Shireman. And
Mm-hmm.
for a minute there, I just expected him to shoot the ball really well. I know that he made good decisions and things like that. But that UConn system can make even the lowest IQ players look incredibly smart. So to see that translate to the league, like he's a mistake free player. I'm really surprised about like how well he is possession to possession. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can almost give him the ball and be confident that you're gonna get a good shot. Like he's been that good in summer league, and that's a pleasant surprise as well as his defense. His defense was decent at UConn, but he's showing that he's decent at the NBA level too, and that's just something that I didn't really expect, and you typically don't expect from shooters or players that are pegged as shooters. But he's offense and defense, and pretty solid across the board. And I just didn't expect him to be ready day one. And I will say it is summer league, yeah, but you could just tell if you plug him in around talent like Ja, Bane, Jaren,
Mm-hmm.
Edie,
Yeah.
he's gonna slot right in perfectly. Like he's ready day one.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I was like kind of amazed too because I didn't know what to expect. Yeah, but yeah, I was it was like a nice surprise, like not a surprise because but yeah. Um Also
I
you mentioned you yeah, go ahead.
Now I was just about to say I think the passing and the defensive IQ, just offensive IQ, like the passing and the movement and setting other players up, has been the
Mm-hmm.
most surprising part. I didn't know he was this active or this
Yeah.
impactful. Yeah.
You also mentioned Jalen Wells. Yeah, he had like a rough start, and then on game two in Salt Lake, I believe. Yeah, it started going well. What's your analysis on him? You already told that his defense. You already talked about his defense, uh, and like the shooting is there. It's just sometimes not falling. You want to elaborate on Wells a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, I just think, when you look at second round picks,
Mm-hmm.
just in general, second round picks in general, they usually don't really come into the league with something that they're elite at, or they don't come into the league with something that they can hang their hat on. What I'm watching in this summer league is, Jalen Wells can hang his hat on this defense. And he's been hanging his hat on this defense. The shooting, the biggest thing in summer league is never the shooting. I never pay attention to the shooting percentage and things like that. I pay attention to the shot selection, the
Mm-hmm.
defense, the awareness, like knowing the plays and how fast they pick that up, the movement, all those little things. And he's pretty much done all of those things as well as flashing as an offensive player in certain spurts. That game too, where he actually, got to start and was a focal point in the summer league offense. He started like 1 for 7 and then finished the game shooting 50% from the field, 27
Mm-hmm.
points in a game winning shot. So I think, it's just going to take him a little bit of time to adjust to the speed offensively, and being able to, set his feet and be effective in, those low volume situation that he's going to be in when he's playing with the big boys. He's going to be in
Mm-hmm.
a low volume role. He's not going to shoot the ball a lot, but when he shoots it, he needs to make them. So like that's going to be an adjustment, but his defense has been amazing. So I'm not worried at all. I was super excited when we drafted him because of the tools. I think he'll spend a little bit of time in South Haven getting that rhythm and getting himself together. Kind of like how we've done with our draft picks in the past, kind of like what we did with Gigi last year.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to spend some time down there getting his rhythm, getting his confidence. And once he does that, man, the sky's the limit if he hits. If he hits, this window is going to be so wide open for this team if Jalen Wells hits. Because I'm sure Cam is going to hit. I'm sure Edie's going to hit. Gigi's hit. Vince is hit. If Jalen Wells hits, man, that puts us in such a good space. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned you mentioned well spending some time in South Haven probably, which is normal. Yet Jalen Wells got a standard contract, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes.
And Spencer like is probably on a two-way, I think.
Yes. And
You have an
and
idea why not the other way around?
I don't think so. I think Jalen Wells, like we gotta put it into perspective before they seen these guys play.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like Jalen Wells is 6'7", 20 years old with tremendous defensive upside, tremendous offensive upside. That's the type of player that you lock in for 4 years, because in year two, like, who knows where the leap is gonna go. So you
Yeah.
definitely lock that in. Cam Spencer is a 5-year player, I think, 4 or 5 year player. He's pretty much already at the precipice of what he's gonna be. He can
Okay.
take his game to another level, of course, but in terms of like tremendous leaps, that's not gonna happen. That rarely happens. So for him, he's more of a finished product than Jalen
Yeah.
Wells.
I get it.
So they in the roster situation, if we had the roster spots to sign both of them, well, all three of them, Edie, Cam, and Jalen, I think we would have done it and put all of them on standard contracts. But we had that extra two-way spot open. It just made sense to see how he does on that two-way. And I'm sure he's going to outplay it, and we're going to make some moves to have him available for the playoffs at some point. But I mean, I think they did the right thing. Hindsight is 2020. You can always look back after you see a player play or see a player perform, and you can say, "Well, we should have done this." But like in the moment, they did the right thing. They were thinking the right way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You have a point there. I was asking because yeah, it was a question that I saw and also came to my mind. But yeah, well, you got a point there.
Yeah,
It
that was a
was
great
well,
question.
no, no,
Great
no,
question.
no, yeah, yeah, and it was a great answer. It just made perfect sense in my mind. Now, Edie, I gotta tell you because I was excited to see Edie playing, but I didn't. There were two summer league games I didn't watch, which was the first one and the last one last night. So I
Yeah.
didn't get to see Edie playing. How did you see Edie playing? I'm looking forward to it, but what can you tell me? Well, I saw
Man,
the highlights and I read a lot, but well,
yeah.
your experience.
So I don't know if you know, but I'm a part of that group on social media who's kind of been on the Edie train since like February. So like I've been pushing the Edie train and doing my, due diligence and scouting and trying to dispel some of the misconceptions about his game. Uh and he did just that. Like he proved me to be right, and he proved some of us to be right in terms of his plus skills, like the things that he does do well, translate into the league, as well as his speed. Like people assume that he's slow because he's 7'5" and he doesn't have to move extremely twitchy or move extremely
Mm-hmm.
fast because he covers so much space. But in that first game in Utah, he looked way faster than Walker Kessler. He looked way more athletic than Walker Kessler. And he kind of bullied him, man. And honestly, he could have quite easily had 25 and 15 if he wanted. We missed him a lot on those seals. We missed him a lot when he was wide open and had his man sealed. So I'm pretty sure if you give him the ball in those situations, his, field goal percentage at the rim is astronomical. So he'll finish at least half of those, well over half. So if we would have gave him the ball a lot more, you could have been looking at a 30 and 15 type game. Like he was that good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Uh, I was going to ask you about the draft. You kind of already answered, but I'm gonna ask you to elaborate on that because heading into the draft, there was this clinging ED thing going on. You already said that
Yeah.
you were like on the clingy ED, sorry, on the ED part of the issue. Why?
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, is there's something I value when I'm doing my scouting and evaluation that like other people just don't value as much. And that's
Mm-hmm.
just play strength. And that's just how you use your functional strength. Like on the basketball court, are you able to get to your moves and not get bumped off your spot easily? Are you making strong, attempts at the rim? Are you strong on defense when you're contesting shots or walling people up? All of those things. I think Klingon had a real problem with that in college, and it kind of raised my eyes like a red flag. as well as Klingon just underperformed whenever he went against NBA talent or talent that was at least comparable to him in terms of stature. And that raised a red flag as well. In regards to Edie, yeah, he's not your typical, you know, in the league nowadays. He's not your typical step outside, shoot the three, play out of the short roll, put the ball on the floor between your legs, get to the. He's not that big, but he's a very, very dominant traditional big. And there's still room for that in the NBA, especially 7'5". So like I just imagine, I imagine the best of Rudy Gobert and the best of Steve Adams kind of in one player and how effective of a player that can be on both ends. Only difference that I'll say with Edie is I think Edie is a much better finisher than both of those guys and a much better post up player,
Hmm.
paint type player on offense than both of those guys. So you get kind of a he's much better than this guy in that area. But you get like a Zubac feel from him or a Jonas Valanciunas feel from him as well on offense. And then in the combine, he surprised me even, and he shot the ball better than Klingon. So like, so like, there's even ability there for him to potentially expand on that. So, just watching him I thought that he was the second best player in this draft. I really loved Ron Holland, and I think
Hmm.
the same thing with Ron Holland. The shooting numbers weren't quite there, but the shot is not broke, and that was the biggest knock on Ron Holland was the shot. So I think in terms of both of those guys and the misconceptions about them, when you turn on the film and watch them play, there's no doubt that they're the best player on the court. There's no doubt, in
Hmm.
terms of talent, so that was my biggest evaluation from Edie. When I turned on the film, I saw a different player than what I was hearing about. So yeah, sometimes you just got to turn on the film and throw the numbers away and started looking into the numbers that actually make sense. And his rebounding percentage, block percentage, assist percentage, finishing field goal percentage at the rim, finishing rates out of the pick and roll, out of post up, out of DHO was astronomical. So, I don't know how everybody missed that or most people missed that, but I'm glad they did. He's a
Yeah,
Grizzly
yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Listen, when you are like looking into a prospect, do you kind of rely more on stats and analytics or on film?
So there's so I rely heavily on the film. Uh, but I think there's a combination that has to happen, right? Because sometimes the film might not necessarily um it might not necessarily confirm what you're seeing, or you might not get confirmation from just watching the film. Like
Hmm.
for instance with Zach Edey, my biggest thing was people were saying, "Oh, he can't step out on the perimeter and guard. He's horrible on defense. He's just sitting in the paint all the time and just waiting on it." So I had to kind of, go and look on film and see if this was true. And turns out it wasn't it wasn't really that true when you turned on the film. And then when you look at the numbers defensively as well, at one point in his junior year, he was up to be defensive player of the year nationally. So, and in the Big 12, I think, or Big East. Um,
Hmm.
and I just sometimes the numbers help confirm something that like people necessarily don't see. Like you use the numbers, what's the best way I can say this? You use the numbers to
Yeah.
confirm what you're seeing. That's all. Like
Okay.
you
Yeah.
use the numbers to confirm what you're seeing.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned that there were questions, there were doubts about how Edie's game was going to be able to translate to the NBA. You already kind of addressed it, but how do you see his game translating into the NBA? Do you think that those questions, okay, at point one they were valid, and point two, do they have like Um, are they real questions, or do you think that his game will translate much better than some people, of course, naturally could have?
Yeah, I mean, there are real questions when you kind of do base level scouting and just focus on the numbers that you want to focus on, like 3-point percentage, and you know, you watch the game nowadays. And yes, I agree that if you put Edie on a team where he has to be the first option, and you're just throwing the ball down to him every possession in the NBA, that's not gonna work. But if you put him on a team in a situation with dominant guards, let's say he didn't even land in Memphis. Let's say he landed in Atlanta with Trae Young,
Mhm.
or let's say he
Mhm.
landed in Indiana with Tyrese Halliburton, or like landing in spaces that make sense because he's a dominant pick and roll player. He's a great offensive rebounder. He's a good rim protector, but you need certain pieces around him to make that pop, just like every player. You need
Of
defense
course,
around John Morant. You need defense around Trey Young.
Trae
Like
Young.
you need pieces around everybody to cover up their weaknesses. So with Zach Edey, I think you need shooting around him, and you need an elite point guard because in that pick and roll, now you can't really blitz John Morant because if you blitz John Morant and send two people at John Morant, you got to give the ball to Edie, or if you send somebody to tag Edie, now you got Desmond Bain or Marcus Smart or Vince Williams or Jaren Jackson Jr. wide open on the 3-point line. So it's one of those things where I think there were a good amount of places he could have fit. But much like every player in this draft, depending on where you go, it can ruin your career. And I think a lot of people, the way they saw his game, they didn't really, you know, see him as a role player. I feel like they kind of saw him as being what he was going to be in what he was in college, and that's just not. I mean, obviously that's not who he was going to be. So you kind of had to look at what role he would play, and how you do that is look at what's in the NBA and figure out what's the closest thing to him and how did that translate. And you see Zubac translating well. You see Steven Adams translating well. You see, Rudy Gobert translating well. You see Jonas Valanciunas. Like you see, it's so many examples of players that have the same skill sets as Zach Edey, except they're not 7'5" and they don't have the pedigree or the efficiency that he has. So I think the doubts were valid. The doubts are always valid to a certain
Of
extent,
course, yeah,
but it takes a really good scout and really film junkies almost, or thinking outside of the box to place players who are outliers in the right position or see them in the right light, because he is an outlier. He's 7'5", 300 pounds, and the 7'5", or 300-pound players that we've seen come into the league, they haven't been as good as him. Like, so it's
hmm,
it's hard. It's hard to put a player who's an outlier, from the standard in the right position and see it as that. Sometimes we just kind of generalize it, and I think that was the problem with Zach Edey. He was getting a lot of comparisons to Boban, but they're nothing alike. So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
yeah, they play nothing alike. So it's one of those things where he was an outlier, and I think people kind of tried to compare him to people, and there was really no comparison in the modern day except maybe those guys that I mentioned, and all of those guys are productive players. So should have gave you the indication that he was going to be a productive player, in my opinion.
yeah, yeah. And you, how do you see he playing? You already mentioned, but he playing with Ja with and pick and roll and also opening space like for Dez or other shooters around. How do you see this?
So biggest thing in pick and roll is
Hmm.
for most people in pick and roll, you're gonna cover it three ways. You're either gonna go over top, you're gonna go under, or you're gonna
Hmm.
switch it. Um, you can't go over top with John Morant and Zach Edey.
Yeah.
because Ja Morant either is going to blow past you and get straight to the rim, or you're going to have to come up on him and he's going to make an incredible pass to Zach Edey, and it's going to be an easy bucket, or at least, lead to an easy bucket if he's passing the way he's supposed to. You can go under against Ja, but I mean, if you go under, Ja is one of those players that can still kind of, still beat you to the rim even though you went under because you created an angle. Or potentially you get rescreening. Like Zach Edey is really good at rescreening. So you go under, and now he's screening you the opposite way, and now you got your big man on the island against Ja Morant, because you're playing peekaboo behind the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you switch it, I mean, Ja Morant's just gonna back up, and now you have your 6'7", 6'8", or 6'2", 6'3", guard or forward trying to guard Zach Edey in the post. So it's so many ways that it's just a devastating partnership or duo. But the other part of that is we haven't even mentioned Desmond Bane or Jaren Jackson Jr. So like, even if you do stop the Edey and Ja pick and roll initially, now you have to deal with the secondary action of potentially, giving the ball to Edey and dealing with a DHO from Desmond Bane, or an inverted pick and roll with Jaren as the ball handler and Edey as the screener. Like, either way, it's just he's a perfect piece for this team, because what he brings differently that Steven Adams didn't bring is Steven Adams wasn't the lob threat that he is, as well as just his mentality. Like, Zach Edey's mentality is much more dominant, and he's a much better offensive player. So, I mean, that's how he fits offensively. Defensively, I mean, he fits basically how all of our last 2 fives didn't fit, like had to fit. Steven Adams played drop coverage on certain, situations. He was able to step out on the perimeter and contest threes when he needed to. And same thing with Jonas Valanciunas. He was much worse at it than both of the guys, Steven Adams and Edey. But we're essentially going to play him the same way, and that's when Jaren is at his best. That's when our defense is at its best, because we know the rim is protected. We can kind of sell out on the perimeter for, those passing lanes and get out and run and get some deflections and steals. So he fits perfectly on both ends, man. I can go all day on this one, but I'm gonna stop there.
Yeah. Listen, how did you like? What made you like want to analyze draft prospects and go to like base players?
Yeah.
How did that work for you? What go on.
Well, I'll say coming up, I was very athletic. Football was my first sport. But from the moment I started playing basketball, I always loved basketball. But I kind of knew that if I was going to go to college and get a free education, or, potentially do anything professionally, it was going to be track or football, just based on stature and based on, statistics, whatever the case may be. But I always loved basketball more than, once I started playing it. When I got to college, I really started to watch basketball a lot more than any other sport. And then I got to a certain point at the end of my college career where, I had kind of found a calling in just wanting to be a coach. So I started coaching my senior year of college, and I've been coaching ever since. But one of my favorite things to do is just evaluate the game. When it comes to coaching my own team, I think if you're not spending, time recording your team and, trying to fix mistakes and, help these kids develop as much as possible, then I mean, you're probably not as invested as you probably should be if you're not doing that, trying to figure out how to help these kids get better by studying film and, just improving your craft. And I think kind of what helped me be better at studying film is like watching people who do study film, getting better in my basketball knowledge, just watching coaching clinics, going to coaching clinics with USA Basketball and PCB, all of these great programs who do basketball clinics. I watch some Spanish basketball clinics, Canadian. Basketball is nationwide, man. It's worldwide, and it's the
Yeah,
best.
sure.
It's the best sport in the world, in my opinion. So over the last 4 or 5 years, I've kind of just been immersed in it. So I always used to be so interested in the draft and studying players, so that way I just knew what to expect. Or, during that dead period, like we're about to go through now, where basketball is just a dead period. At first, I used to wait till the draft is over, and then I would go and just look up these players who got drafted and kind of like watch their film and study them and things like that. But eventually, the drafting thing, I'll give some credit to Draft Express. I forget his name right now. I'm so mad that his name is not coming up in my head, but not Jonathan Cavoni. It was the guy before him that got hired by the Portland Trailblazers. I really became inspired by him, and I was like, I have this same knowledge. Like I could be doing this as well. And that's when I really started doing it. And I've just gotten better every year at evaluating these prospects and scouting in general. But that's kind of the story of how I came about it and why
Yeah,
I started really immersing myself in it. But yeah, I'm just gonna keep going with it because I'm good at it. I love to do it, and also just helping people in general. You never know what NBA player might turn on your YouTube or and get some motivation or learn something about their game just by watching you. Like I'm sure that happens all the time. So just putting that knowledge out there, man, and just seeing what happens. Talking ball. I love to talk ball.
yeah, yeah. That's really cool. That's really cool. Um, when you a question that just popped up on my mind. When you're like watching the Grizz, are you more like the fan or the coach, or both?
You said when I'm watching the Grizz,
Yeah, like
uh, it's, I'll
oh, you
say this.
merge it too. You merge it too.
I will say both, but
Mm-hmm.
I will say during the good games, I'm kind of more of a fan. Like when things are going well, but
Uh-huh.
when things are going bad, like the coach in me just is like, this is wrong. Like this is not, like the coach in me immediately comes out. So I would say, during our better games, the games where the execution is on point, and like as a coach, I can sit back and say, oh, I love that, and kind of sometimes I kind of write stuff down so that way I can put it in my own bag. But typically on those bad games though, we they're really bad, and I just the coach in me just has to say his piece.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of coach, Grizzlies are restructuring the assistant coaching staff, and we brought up Thomas Rizalo. I hope I said this right. I probably did. I think from Paris FC. Do you know anything about him? He was like run the best offense basketball team uh, in world in Europe, of course. Did you know about him? And if you did, or if you didn't, but then you uh, looked into it, what do you see him bringing to the Grizz? Given the fact that TJ is more defense oriented, and so is Lizardo, Thomas Lizardo is more like an offensive expert.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I kind of when when he got hired, I always go in. Shout out to Grizzlies film. He does a great job of pointing you in the right direction as well to like learn more about those coaches or whatever the case may be. And he actually ran an offense that basically accomplished a offensive rating that was higher than any NBA team in NBA history.
Mm-hmm.
So his offense is very fast paced, like the Grizzlies. I think he's a little bit more structured. And he has a unique way of using screening. Like screening has a unique way of using screening to his advantage. That Gortat screening, Verajal screening, pin downs, slipping, and I just think that's kind of what's missing in our offense a little bit. It's well known that Jaren didn't really start setting screens until like
Mm-hmm.
last year. So like it's like we're definitely behind in a sense of using our basketball, well, our most talented players and putting them in the right position and being creative when it comes to, helping them make it easier offensively. But I definitely think Tomas is going to make it extremely easy for this team to score because Edie and Ja are kind of like perfect to slide into his offense because Edie's gonna set those high ball screens early in fast break situations. He's gonna set those court touch screens to help Ja get to the basket and stop the help from coming over, as well as Desmond Bain and those guys. And that's the reason why I think Marcus Smart is definitely gonna start on this team because as much as I love Vince and as much as I love Gigi, Marcus Smart is basically another point guard on the floor. So you can
Mm-hmm.
pretty much throw the ball ahead to Marcus, Ja, or Desmond Bain and start your offense immediately. So I think that's the benefit of this new coach, this new system, and our players. It kind of fits our personnel perfectly. Especially with BC on those slips. BC was already slipping, so but now that it's going to be a focal point in the offense, I can honestly see BC having the best year of his career potentially. But I love everything I've seen about Tomas, and he definitely revolutionized the game with the Gortat screening and kind of making it a part of you know possession to possession basketball. For the
Mm-hmm.
most part, you just didn't see the Gortat screen or the Virgil screen a lot, but in this offense, you're gonna see it a lot. You're gonna see slipping a lot, and you're gonna see screening being extremely important in this offense.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I'm excited about it too. One small one thing I noticed the other day, uh, you said that you felt like Zaire was a better fit for this team.
Yes.
Can you kind of withdraw from it? That, Zaire versus Jake. Uh, um,
Yeah.
then you kind of withdraw, and then you pointed like the thing for you with Jake was, if I'm not mistaken, of course, if he can keep his defensive attitudes like for longer stretches. Am I right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so
I
where do we
mean,
stand? Who's the better fit for you now?
for me, I still think Zaire is the better fit. Um,
Mhm.
I think Zaire gets a bad rap. I think they kind of ruined Zaire's development. Obviously, you're number 10 pick. Expectations are high for what they expected you to be and what you actually are two different things. They expected him to be uh Gigi Jackson. It's like they basically expected him to be Gigi Jackson, and he's definitely not ZT Jackson. He's more Jaden McDaniels. Like he's gonna give you good defense. And on offense, he's gonna, run the floor in transition. He's gonna cut well. He's gonna catch alley hoops, and then he's gonna knock down, open shots when he has it. But as far as on ball creation, that's not gonna be his forte. I
Mhm.
think I think leaning into that role, and now that we know that, it takes a lot off of Zaire's shoulders and makes it easier for him to play. And it makes it easier for the coach to put him in advantageous situations. With Jake, first, man, clap it up for Jake. Like he's been so great since
Yeah.
since the second stretch of this last season till now.
Yeah.
He's been great. But my thing with Jake is I don't really think he still really hasn't figured out who he is offensively. Um, he does a really good job moving and things like that, but the shot is not as consistent. I think that has a lot to do with inconsistent footwork. If he can get more consistent on his footwork, he'd probably be a better shooter. In terms of slashing, he doesn't really have a profile to flash. Like he doesn't have, I mean, to slash. He doesn't have, the quick twitch. He's not gonna be the guy that's gonna take you off the dribble and dunk on you. He'll meet you at the
Mhm.
rim and dunk on you. He'll back cut you and dunk on you. He'll catch an alley
Mhm.
hoop potentially and dunk on you. But like that's a lot of the same stuff that Zaire does. I think Jake has to be a better shooter if he wants to stick long term. If not, he's gonna be kind of John Concharish, like at the end of the bench and come in and give you good energy and then, in stretches. But that's the other thing as well. Jake will start off really well, getting in passing lanes, defensive intensity is up, and then he'll have 8 to 10 minute stretches where he's kind of just chilling. Like for lack of better words, like the defense intensity disappears. He's
Like
kind of getting
cardio.
lost. Say it again,
Hmm.
I'm sorry.
Like cardio, doing cardio.
Exactly. He's
Hmm.
kind of just running around. And I mean, John Conchar has those moments as well. So I just think I just want to see more consistency from him. He has the profile to be a good defender in terms of size and arm length and even toughness. But like
Hmm.
but like the he's gonna have to get in better shape and his conditioning is gonna have to be better, or his effort is just gonna have to be better if he wants to stick in the league and be, a productive role player because you just can't have those stretches. Those 5 or 10 minute stretches are everything because those 5 or 10 minute stretches could quite easily turn into a 15-0 run.
Yeah.
Like all
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because you're not getting out to shooters, you're falling asleep and not being able to recover to your man. You're reaching in instead of moving your feet, and now your man has a drive to the basket. If anybody who's listening goes back and watch the summer league game, watch in the last one, watch how great he was defensively early on, and then there's a part in the middle of the game, right before he gets injured, like a 10-minute stretch where he's kind of just out there defensively. And like
Yeah.
those are the stretches that we have to avoid. I would love to see more consistency. And I don't have to worry about that with Zaire. Zaire's going to go out there and he's going to play intense defense 48 minutes if he has to. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
he's gonna run the floor. You don't ever have to worry about Zaire's effort. Like he's gonna dive on the floor, he's gonna run the floor hard, he's gonna cut to the basket hard. Only thing with Zaire is his confidence. And I think if you stop expecting him to be GG Jackson and kind of just make him the spot up or the cutter or screen and roller like he was, when he had his best game last season, it'd be a lot better. And that's all I thought. But I know they're trying to trade Zaire, so it's sad that they're gonna trade him. Well, it's not sad. I kind of want them gone from the back of the roster, but I just think if he had to play this year, he probably changed that narrative if he was in the right position and right role.
Yeah. And I do agree with you on one thing. For sure, I do. Um, I kind of get the feeling that the problem with Zaire, the main problem is the confidence. I kind of get that feeling too, for sure.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
it's the main
and
thing.
yeah, that's something that yeah, it's hit me for a long time.
And
Uh,
that's kind of what's happening to Bronny right now. It's confidence. It's the same thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, well, Bernie has like a lot of weight on his shoulder, to be honest. Like
Exactly.
it shouldn't be easy to deal with. Now, talking about last season, I want you like to drop me like an analysis on how did you see last season, which of course was no one was seeing that season coming, but also there were the upsides and the silver linings, especially like of course the emergence of Vince Williams, Gigi, of course, and also Dez and Jaren putting into like having to develop also their game, especially Ja being out for like he was only played like 9 games, I believe, in the whole season. How did you see the season, especially like on general, and like then the upsides, especially like for Des, Jaren, Vince, and Gigi, and any other player that you want to that caught your eye also.
I think last year was necessary.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was necessary for Jaren to kind of be thrown into the fire as well as Dez. I feel like that bad start should definitely be motivation for them this summer. Because even though you didn't have Ja out there and there were injuries or whatever the case may be, as secondary and to tertiary stars to John Morant, they kind of have to feel like, dang, I should have been able to get some wins by myself. So it's kind of like bitter and sweet. Like the bitter part is the results, right? Like the results
Yeah.
were terrible, but the sweet part is now they have a chip on their shoulders, and now they should feel some type of way because the way last season went, the disrespect teams were showing us, the lack of winning, the fan base and how they felt, about their performance at certain points. Jaren only coming out averaging 5 rebounds. I know he's not happy about that. Dez not really finishing the season and not really, you know, getting his feet in the ground this season like he wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Fighting injuries as well. Marcus Smart, I think it was a blessing in disguise for him to kind of have those little injuries. Because looking back at it, he had a little hip injury that was nothing, never bothered him again. That kept him out early, and then he like broke his finger. Those are minor injuries, in the grand scheme of things. And I
Yeah.
think and I think it was kind of good for him after all of that wear and tear from being with Boston and going to the playoffs every year, kind of like a LeBron type run. Like he was in the playoffs every year of his career. So like finally, being able to like sit down and have a season like this and then come back motivated and watch your old team win a championship. We should be getting a lot of good mindsets from these people. Even Brandon Clark having to sit back and watch what happened in the Lakers series 2 years ago, and then this year
Mm-hmm.
having to sit back and kind of wait, and then playing 6 games and playing really well, feeling like himself. Even hit a big three in the Detroit game to give us the
Yeah.
lead, and that came back for him. So, like, a lot of good things happened this season. Most importantly, getting Scottie Pippen closer to the deadline and signing him on a two-way, getting Gigi in there and getting Vince in there and getting what you got from them. I think it's a lesson to be learned from last season. In terms of this coaching staff, they fired the coaching staff, got better coaches in. Zach Kleiman is being a little bit more patient this offseason and trusting the guys that he probably should trust instead of playing politics.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I didn't see them kind of take the same route they took with Roddy, Desmond Bain, and Zaire Williams with Gigi this summer league. They kind of just let them play. And I feel like the last 3 or 4 summer leagues, we kind of forced it. Like, whatever player we wanted to see explode or get better or take that next step, we kind of forced it instead of letting them do it on their own. So last year was rough, man. Like, I watched every
Yeah.
game. We were arguing in spaces. We were, down on our team. And now I think good things came from that, though, especially Zach Edey. The good thing came from it. You know, Cam Spencer, Jalen Wells added to this group. Even Luke Kennard to a certain extent, like he kind of shot the ball well, but I think him being on ball for a long stretch this year, and now
Yeah,
him being off ball potentially and playing with Jai Bane and Smart, I think it's gonna make him a better player on this team and make him a more willing shooter. Um,
yeah,
because I think he kind of took for granted the fact he kind of didn't take shots because he was saying he wasn't open or he wasn't comfortable. But then when he was on ball, he never really got to take shots because you're always playing with tight defense on you. So I think now that he's back off ball, that perspective may be there for him in terms of, hey, when I was on ball, I definitely wasn't getting these looks. So now you might be more willing to shoot them, with the confidence and, you know, the lack of consciousness that you need to. So I'm hoping all of those things come together. And last year was just, you know, necessary. I'm hoping it was
yeah.
necessary for where we're trying to go.
I agree with you. I watched 79 games last season, and like coming now into this season, the feeling I get is okay. This was awful result level. Of course, it was very bad to see. But now, okay, now we are coming back, and I do think that the players, of course, in themselves they feel the same. Probably they feel even more than we do because they are the ones that are there playing. And so, yeah, I agree with you. I think that's this season may maybe like a blessing in a disguise, in an ugly disguise. I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, maybe a blessing in a disguise because also it's like toughen the mentality. Do you agree with this?
Yeah, it should. I think, especially for Taylor Jenkins, I
Mm-hmm.
think it's definitely changed his perspective. And I mean, kind of changed his job security, honestly. I think he has to perform well this year as a coach, or we've brought in a coaching staff now that if he can't get it done, there are a couple of head coaches on his staff. so he like so
Hmm.
even with him, it was kind of a wake up call. So I'm expecting better performance from him as well. But yes, the mentality should be totally different.
Yeah, we're gonna get to the TJ in a bit. You mentioned Zach Lyman being trusting more the players that he has, like, and do you think that's one of the reasons for how do you see the Grizzlies not really moving in the free agency? Because I'm asking you this because there were on there was on Grizz Twitter like this thing expecting to for us to sign somebody which didn't happen. Do you did you see the need for any signing to happen or didn't you
Uh,
on free agency? I mean,
I
until now.
think I think Conchar, Zaire, all of those guys at the back, I think they should have been gone a long time ago. Um, I think we could be potentially putting ourselves in a very similar situation as last year if we don't, get the depth that we need, especially at the five. Um, but at the same time, there's clearly a plan. I mean, Luke is not even talking to other teams, and he's kind of he knows he's going to be in Memphis, but he hasn't signed a contract yet. So I'm assuming that means that Zach has some type of plan. Um, so I'm learning to be patient, but I would be lying if I said that I wasn't pissed.
Hmm.
Sitting back, I would be lying if I said I wasn't pissed. Sitting back watching all these teams sign these players for like doable money, like very doable money, like
Yeah,
doable money, and probably could have still kept us under the first apron and under the tax. So it was kind of painful to watch some of these guys get signed and those players, in my opinion, were probably a lot better than Luka Nart. Um, so it was I don't know, it was kind of frustrating to watch that, but at the same time, I'm gonna be patient. You know, he obviously has some type of plan. I might not agree with the plan, but he has a
Okay.
plan. You know, he has a plan, and I guess that's what matters.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. You mentioned the depth at the five position. You agree that do need another center.
Yes, yes. I mean, I love what Trey has been doing.
Mm-hmm.
Trey Jemison. I love what he's been doing in summer league, but Trey Jemison can't play next to Edie. You know, Trey Jemison can't play next to Clark because essentially both of them are non-shooters. If Clark can start to expand his range again and start shooting threes better this year, that
Mm-hmm.
opens up some possibilities. But I kind of want a big, that can step out and shoot the three and space the floor a little bit, or at least, put the ball on the floor and it's comfortable on the perimeter to be able to, make the depth and the switchability of our big lineup a lot more formidable. I think right now, uh, you have a guy in Brandon Clark who has a history of ticky tack injuries. Like he might not get major injuries a lot, but like even before his Achilles injury, which was his only major injury, he
Mm-hmm.
was kind of a guy that would be out 2 or 3 games and then pop back in, play 15, and then be out another two, and then pop back in. So like, with Edie having his ankle injuries right now, it's just kind of like if Edie gets hurt and Brandon Clark gets hurt at any point, not seriously hurt, but
Yeah,
for a stretch of like 10 or 15 games or potentially the playoffs, we could be in real trouble if we don't sign a big like that can bring depth to the situation. Um,
and
and I forgot about Santi, but I view Santi as more of a big wing than a big. He can do some
mm-hmm.
big things. He can do some big things, and he can make your 5 out um game a little bit better. But I would love to have like a big that can do those things.
Any name?
Any names? I'm watching Summer League right now. I've been really impressed with Orlando Robinson from Miami,
Mm-hmm.
as well as Jay Huff from Orlando, who we actually play tomorrow. But Jay Huff is also a UVA graduate and a UVA, player. So University of Virginia. So I'm very familiar with Jay Huff. Jay Huff has been good for a long time. He was very good on the Lakers G League team, the same as Scottie Pippen. They played together. And he's been good for a while. So I'm he's kind of showing me that he's ready for his shot. I mean, kind of what Scotty's doing. Like I think they
Yeah,
came in the same year. I think they
it's
came in
funny.
the same year.
It's funny that you mentioned because I didn't know him, but 2 nights ago I was watching. I don't remember who the Magic were playing. Like 2 nights ago, yeah, and I noticed him. I was impressed. Yeah,
Yeah,
Jay
like
Huff. Yeah.
and he's been really good for a long time. He can block shots. He can step out and shoot it. I mean, UVA players are just good in general. Like UVA players are really good in general. But yeah, I think he came in the same year as Scotty, I believe, 2021, 2022, and he averaged 15 and 7 his first year. This is the G League with 6 rebounds, 14 and 7, 16 and 7, 15 and 7, and then last year he averaged 20 and 8.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and
Okay.
and 4 blocks, which is
Okay.
insane.
Okay. It's a plus. Yeah.
Yeah, that's insane. But yeah, but he's been good, man. I think it's time. I think it's time to give him a chance. Over his career in the G League, he's averaging 19.1 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists. It's pretty good.
Mm.
Pretty good. So I guess we'll see, bro. But I really
Okay.
like those two.
Yeah, you
Um,
mentioned a couple of ones. I asked you like names. Yeah, yeah, and you mentioned
yeah, I
a
like
couple of
those two. They wouldn't cost you much either.
yeah. Okay, that's stamped. If the Grizzlies move that way, you stamped it first. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I know Grind mentioned it as well. Grindhouse Spaces. He
yes,
mentioned
I
it
saw
as
that
well.
tweet too. Yeah, yeah, I was just,
Yeah,
yeah, I saw that too. Yeah, he mentioned on the night of that game that I was watching. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
I noticed that too. Um, okay, so now, heading into next season, I got like two questions I want to ask you. One, like, overall in the big picture, how do you expect the Grizzlies coming out next season? What do you expect them to do on this upcoming season, on starting on October?
I'm kind of I'm expecting them to be in the Western Conference Finals. That's the expectation. You know, I mean, nothing more, nothing less at the moment. They have the opportunity to do something, special at the deadline, depending on what the landscape is looking like, and add a better player to this already great group. But you know, I'm thinking Western Conference Finals at the very least. Staying healthy is priority number one. Staying
Yeah.
healthy is priority number one. Priority
Mm-hmm.
number two is in improving the half court offense. You do those two, and you stay consistent in the things that you're good at. Playing defense, causing turnovers, blocking shots. Um, I don't see why there's no reason, there's no team in the West right now that should be able to beat you in a 7-game series aside from maybe, you know, OKC takes another leap, maybe Minnesota takes another leap, but you should be able to get to the Western Conference Finals.
Okay.
Should
Yeah.
be able to.
Okay. So that leads me to the next question. About Taylor Jenkins. Uh, two questions in one question. Do you think is the coach to take us to the next level, or do you think that maybe another coach would be necessary to take us to the next level? And the second question within this question is, uh, expectations now are high on Taylor Jenkins. Do you agree?
Yes, with the second part, definitely. Expectations are extremely high for Taylor Jenkins. Like, there's no more, you know, maybe next year. Like, that has to stop. Usually a good indication of,
Mm-hmm.
how good a coach is, or what, the front office thinks of a coach, is what you do in the off season, like what you put around them. Last year they went and got St. Andrews, they went and got um, Anthony Carter. This year they
Mm-hmm.
go and get this savant from Europe.
Mm-hmm.
I think Taylor Jenkins is not going to be the coach to coach us when we're at the mountaintop. And I think they're preparing for him to go. I think the guy that they got from France, I don't think he's over here for no reason. Like, he left, head coaching his own team to come over
Uh-huh.
here. You know, Anthony Carter left Miami to come here to be a big part of the staff. So, like, those guys, like, they're next in line for the head coaching position, in my opinion. And I think anytime you have to bring in, you know, extra coaches to make up for something that you're not good at, that's a bad sign. Like, I feel like they're kind of dragging this thing out, honestly. Um, the fact that you had to bring in those type of coaches, to kind of help your guy the get over the hill or get over the hump, that says a lot already. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It says a lot already, and I just, if you're not good enough to put together offense, especially half court offense, that's feasible for, advancing in the playoffs and getting over that hump, you're not the coach, buddy. Like I'm sorry. Like it just
Yeah,
and that's
yeah,
just my opinion. I'm not trying to be he can very well come out this year, coach well, everything goes well, but eventually the Grizzlies are going to make a decision. If you because if you get to that point, Tomas, who we just brought in, and Anthony Carter, they're going to eventually get some head coaching interviews. And you have
yeah,
to decide if he does do it, you have to decide at some point, do you want to let go the guys who kind of made it possible, and have to, bring in another offensive savant? Or do you want to just drop the coach who was kind of a liability and put one of those guys in charge? So yeah,
yeah.
that's my view on it. That's
Yeah,
my
yeah,
view on it.
it's kind of my view too, because well, I'm not saying that Jenkins can do it, and I hope he can. But especially when I saw that they went to get Thomas Lizalo, I was speaking with a friend, and I kind of said the same thing you are saying right now. Like he's not leaving like head coach in Europe just for nothing. Maybe it's like if I I I said this, if it doesn't work out with Jenkins, maybe probably he's on the line. Maybe uh, that's also the sense that I got too.
Yeah, and I
So,
mean, you can also possibly see it work out perfectly. Let's say this guy comes in, implements an offense, and we're the number one offense in the NBA. Let's say that
mhm,
happens next season. Let's say by running, some variation of, Tomas's offense and St. Andrews's concepts. Let's say we're the number one team in the NBA on offense or top five. Know what
mhm,
I mean?
mhm.
He might
Yeah,
be gone. Like he might be gone regardless. He might
y-
be gone regardless. Like so, regardless of how well he does, he might still be gone. Still. So I
oh,
don't know. It, that's my view on it though. Like I like this coach, man. Like I really like this coach.
yeah. Okay, that's fair. Well, I have one last question to ask you. Um, it's a question that I ask a lot of times because I got people that are not even from the states, and also got people from the states that are not from Memphis. And okay, you're from Richmond, Virginia, right? You told me.
Yes,
So
yes.
how does a guy from Richmond, Virginia becomes Memphis Grizzlies fan? Tell me about it. I want to know it.
Well, initially, first thing about Virginia or Richmond, we don't really have a professional sports team. The only sports team that we've had is we had the Richmond Braves, which was
Mhm.
a double A team for the Atlanta Braves at some point. So we don't really have a professional, football team or basketball team. So growing up, I was always an Allen Iverson fan. I always was just a
Mhm.
fan of Allen Iverson or a fan of players. Um, so when I moved to Tennessee in fourth grade, I moved to Tennessee. No, I moved to Tennessee in third grade. The second half of my third grade year, I moved to Tennessee. Went to my first Titans game. Grizzlies games were coming on the TV. This was probably about 2003. Um,
2003. Okay.
yeah, this was about
Mhm.
2003, 2004. So the
Uh-huh.
Grizzlies aren't that good, but they're good. You know what I mean? They're going to the playoffs and things like that. Um, but they still haven't won a playoff game. But they were good. So I was watching them, becoming a fan. I moved back to Virginia for fourth grade and then moved back to Tennessee again in fifth grade and stayed until like eighth grade, in the eighth grade year. So I spent so much time there and I just became a fan of the Titans. It's around the same time where we got OJ Mayo's from West Virginia, so I was a big OJ Mayo fan. We drafted OJ
Hmm.
Mayo. Vince Young was a great college player. We drafted Vince Young, and I was a big Titans fan as well. And that's kind of where my fandom came from. Like I never really knew any other sports team to fall in love with. Um, so yeah, I just fell in love with Tennessee teams when I moved to Tennessee, and it just never left me. I used to go and play, you know, AAU basketball games, and I used to play little league football games and travel and do like bowl games and stuff in Memphis. I always loved the city. Uh, you know,
Hmm.
I seen Derrick Rose, play
You did?
basketball as well in college, and I just was
You did? You
a
did?
big fan. Yes, yes, I love
Uh,
Derrick Rose. I was a big fan, and that was around the time where I was really understanding basketball. So I thought he was the next best thing. So you know, Memphis is very important in my basketball evolution, and from the professional team to like Derrick Rose being one of my favorite, if my favorite in general. He was probably my favorite college basketball player of all time. That was the first time I watched somebody play, and I said, "This is unbelievable!" Like, like that was the first time. So, Memphis is definitely a part of my. And then Allen Iverson ended up getting traded to Memphis at one point. He didn't stay long, but like it's so many ways that it just ties in. But yeah, I've been a Memphis fan for a long time. I was wearing Shane Battier jerseys and OJ Mayo jerseys when it wasn't cool, getting joked on at the lunch table,
okay.
standing 10 toes. I, I was telling people we were gonna beat the Spurs in 2011. Nobody believed me. So then when I showed up in my Zach Randolph jersey after we beat them, that felt good because I was getting picked on for years. So
Yeah.
and that that was
That's,
about sophomore year of high school. So that was fun, man.
okay. Yeah. Okay. That's pretty cool to hear. Is how Grizzlies can reach like people from all over the states and from all over the world. Obviously.
For sure.
Look, I want to thank you for for being here. It was like it was an honor, as I said in the beginning. And that's also really cool talking to you, man. Really, it's really cool. So
Thank you, man.
yeah, it's really cool. And so I want to thank you. Um, do you? I saw that you also dropped some content on social media. Am I right?
Yes, I
You
do a
want to?
podcast. I do a podcast with my guy, King Ken. Over on X, you can watch him on X or through my page. We
Mhm.
usually stream around 8:30. We're trying to aim for 2 episodes a week. But that kind of got stalled because of the hurricane that happened in Houston.
Yeah.
King Ken lives in Houston, so that derailed us a little bit. But you can find us on X. You can find us on YouTube as well. King Ken and Coach Vaughn show. It's in the icon right there, as well as Facebook. You can find us on there as well. Uh, but man, thank you, man. Thank you. I really
My
enjoy your
pleasure.
show. I really
Yeah,
enjoy your
thank you.
show, man. Keep doing these interviews. Haters gonna come, fans gonna come, it's all gonna come. But don't stop doing what you're doing, man. You ever need me back at any point, you know what
Yeah,
to do.
yeah. I'm gonna bring you back starting next season. If you accept the invitation, I'm gonna bring you back. I'm gonna do another series starting next season of podcasts, and that for sure, I will want to have you here. So the invitation is made, but we'll talk, and yeah, for sure, you will be back.
That's
Okay,
awesome. That's awesome, man. I can't
okay.
wait, bro.
You'll go check out my guy podcast on his page on X. Coach Van and KK. You said.
King Ken and Coach Vaughn. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, okay. So thank you once again. It was an honor to have you here. And okay, go Grizz and uh, be back on October. Okay.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It was episode 14 of Grizzlies Worldwide. We had Coach Juan here. He's coming back in October, and hope you had as much fun listening me talking to him as I had talking to him and listening to him. That's right. Okay, so stay good, y'all.